Phillis Wheatley was the first black woman poet, and after Anne Bradstreet, the second woman poet of note in the United States. Wheatley, who is believed to have been of Fulani origin, is assumed to have been born in or near what is now Senegal or the Gambia. Transported on the slaver Phillis, she was sold in 1761 at the age of about 7 to John Wheatley, a Boston merchant. The Wheatley soon recognized her talents and gave her privileges unusual for a slave, including teaching her to read and write not only English but Latin as well. She read poetry and at the age of about 14 began to write it, taking Pope and other neoclassical writers as models. Her elegy on the death of the famous Church of England evangelist George Whitefield, published in 1770, attracted much attention. To a surprising degree, she was accepted in Boston society. In 1773, her poems on various subjects, religious and moral, consisted of 39 poems, was published in England under the sponsorship of the Countess of Huntingdon. And Wheatley's reputation spread in Europe as well as in America. The volume was issued more than a decade later in the United States. Upon her return from a trip to England in 1773, she was manumitted. Mrs. Wheatley died in 1774. Her illness had prompted the poet's return from England, but Phillis remained with the family until the death of John Wheatley in 1778. In April of that year, she married John Peters, a free black man, who later failed in business and was sent to debtor's prison. At the end of her life, Wheatley was working as a servant, and she died in poverty. Wheatley's poetry, largely of the occasional type, was written in neoclassical style. It reflected her own Christian concerns with morality and piety, and in that sense, it was conventional. Until the later part of the 20th century, many critics contended that her significance stemmed from the attention that she drew to her successful education, but later critical reevaluations were less patronizing and brought attention to bear on her mastery of style and suggested evidence of African influences on her work. That's from Merriam-Webster's Encyclopedia of Literature.